Have you ever looked at an old building and wondered why its first floor windows appear to be buried beneath the ground? Why would magnificent stone structures covered in ornate carvings and impossible craftsmanship seem to sink into the earth as if an entire level had vanished? Across the internet, millions of people believe these are not ordinary architectural curiosities, but silent evidence of one of history's greatest cover-ups. They call it the Mud Flood. According to the theory, sometime during the 18th or 19th century, a global catastrophe buried an advanced civilization beneath mountains of mud. Entire cities disappeared, countless people were erased, and somehow history itself was rewritten, replacing the truth with a carefully constructed narrative that survives to this day. It is a story that feels like it belongs in the pages of a forgotten manuscript, a hidden empire known as Tartaria, impossible architecture, lost technology, buildings that appear far too magnificent for the people officially credited with constructing them, mysterious photographs showing empty streets, maps displaying names that seem to have vanished from modern textbooks. Together, these fragments create a puzzle that has captivated millions around the world. But there is another story. A story told through engineering records, city planning documents, archaeological excavations, newspapers, architectural blueprints, census records, and thousands of preserved photographs taken long before the internet existed. A story that is often far less dramatic, but no less fascinating. Tonight, our investigation is not about proving or disproving a conspiracy with emotion. It is about examining every major claim, tracing where those claims originated, and comparing them with the historical evidence left behind. Because history has a strange way of rewarding those who ask difficult questions. The mud flood theory did not begin in universities or archaeological expeditions. It emerged in the digital age, spreading rapidly through online forums, social media, and long-form YouTube videos. Unlike many conspiracy theories, it does not rely on a single event. Instead, it builds its case through hundreds of visual observations. A buried doorway here, an underground window there, a grand cathedral that appears too sophisticated for its era. Individually, each observation seems insignificant. Together, they create an illusion of overwhelming evidence. Human beings are naturally drawn to patterns. Our brains evolved to connect separate pieces of information into meaningful stories. Sometimes those stories reveal genuine discoveries. Other times, they lead us toward conclusions that feel compelling but are not supported by the broader body of evidence. This is where the mud flood theory becomes especially powerful. It asks viewers to trust their own eyes over textbooks, to believe that ordinary explanations are part of a larger deception. Every basement window becomes a clue. Every historical gap becomes intentional censorship. Every unanswered question becomes proof that someone must be hiding something. That emotional journey is incredibly persuasive, because once a person accepts the possibility of a hidden civilization, every new photograph appears to confirm it. One of the theory's central ideas revolves around a mysterious name found on many historical maps, Tartary. Supporters argue that Tartary was not simply a geographical label, but the remains of a forgotten global empire possessing extraordinary knowledge and technology. According to this interpretation, the empire was systematically erased from history after the mud flood buried its cities. At first glance, the old maps seem convincing. Across Europe and Asia, vast regions are labelled Great Tartary, or simply Tartary. To modern viewers unfamiliar with historical cartography, this appears to be evidence of an enormous nation that somehow disappeared without explanation. But what exactly did those maps mean? To answer that question, we have to leave the world of internet speculation and step into the world of historical cartographers. Centuries ago, European mapmakers often used broad regional names for territories they had never fully explored. Just as medieval maps labelled unknown regions with generalised descriptions, the word Tartary referred to enormous areas across northern and central Asia, inhabited by diverse peoples, many of whom Europeans collectively and often inaccurately called Tartars. It was not a single unified empire hidden from history. Rather, it was a catch-all geographic term used by outsiders for lands they did not fully understand. As exploration improved, those broad labels gradually disappeared, replaced by more accurate political boundaries, local names, and detailed surveys. In other words, the changing maps reflected increasing geographic knowledge, not the deliberate erasure of a civilization. Yet this misunderstanding became one of the foundational pillars of the modern Tartaria narrative. Could a simple historical map really inspire an entirely new conspiracy theory? Or does its popularity reveal something even more interesting about how the human mind searches for forgotten stories hidden inside the past? Because if one misunderstood word could ignite millions of imaginations, what happens when we begin examining the buildings themselves? Now the investigation takes us away from old maps and into the streets themselves. This is where the mud flood theory becomes most convincing, not because of ancient texts or secret documents, but because of what anyone can see with their own eyes. Walk through almost any major city built before the 20th century. New York, Chicago, Boston, London, Paris, Prague, St. Petersburg. You will eventually notice something unusual: massive stone buildings with elegant arches and windows that seem to disappear into the ground. Why would architects place beautiful windows below street level? Why would a grand entrance appear to have been swallowed by the earth? To supporters of the mud flood theory, the answer is obvious. These buildings were never meant to have underground floors. They believe the lower levels were once fully exposed until a catastrophic event buried entire cities beneath layers of mud. Photographs of these buildings spread rapidly online. One image becomes 10, 10 become 100. Soon, viewers begin noticing the same pattern everywhere. The evidence seems impossible to ignore, but this is exactly where investigators have to slow down. Seeing something unusual is not the same as understanding why it exists. Let's examine what historians, architects, and civil engineers have documented. Cities are not frozen in time, they constantly change. Streets are widened, roads are raised, sewer systems are installed, flood protection is added, utilities are buried underground, new sidewalks replace old ones. Over decades, and sometimes centuries, the official street level gradually rises. This process is called street regrading, and it has happened repeatedly throughout history. Take Seattle, for example. In the late 19th century, large sections of downtown Seattle were deliberately raised after repeated flooding and sanitation problems. Entire streets were elevated, retaining walls were built, and businesses temporarily continued operating from their original first floors, while new sidewalks were constructed above them. Today, visitors can still tour the underground remains of those original streets. Nothing mysterious, no forgotten empire, no global catastrophe. Every stage of the project was documented in newspapers, engineering plans, city council records, and photographs taken during construction. Chicago tells a similar story. During the 1850s and 1860s, engineers accomplished something that seemed almost impossible. Instead of demolishing thousands of buildings to improve drainage, they literally lifted entire city blocks using thousands of synchronized screw jacks. Hotels, banks, office buildings, Even massive brick structures weighing thousands of tons were carefully raised while people continued working inside. Historical newspapers described the process in extraordinary detail. Engineers left behind technical reports. Photographers documented the work. What appears miraculous today was considered one of the greatest engineering achievements of its time. Then there are basements. Modern audiences often forget that 19th century commercial buildings frequently included partially underground levels designed for storage, coal delivery, mechanical equipment, or temperature-controlled spaces. Small windows allowed ventilation and natural light while keeping the rooms cool. As surrounding streets gradually rose, those same windows appeared even lower than originally intended. No mud flood required. Another frequently cited mystery involves grand staircases that appear to descend into the earth. Supporters argue these staircases prove that the original entrances have been buried. Sometimes they have, but not by a sudden worldwide disaster. Many historic buildings have undergone multiple renovations over more than a century. New entrances were added, accessibility improvements changed elevations, sidewalks were reconstructed, landscaping altered surrounding terrain. Each modification left another layer of history behind. The result can look strange to modern observers who only see the final version. Our investigation now arrives at another cornerstone of the theory: the world's fairs. Supporters often point to enormous exhibition cities built during the 19th century. The buildings seem almost impossible. Gigantic domes, miles of classical architecture, ornate sculptures, perfect symmetry. According to the conspiracy theory, these structures could never have been temporary. Instead, believers argue they were inherited from Tartaria and falsely presented as newly constructed. It is an astonishing claim, and once again, the photographs appear persuasive. The architecture looks too advanced, too detailed, too expensive, too beautiful. Could thousands of workers really have built entire cities in only a few years? Surprisingly, yes. The historical record surrounding World's Fairs is among the best documented construction history anywhere in the world. Contracts survive. Architectural drawings survive. Financial records survive. Construction photographs survive. Worker payrolls survive. Newspaper reports tracked progress almost daily. Many of these famous exhibition buildings were not constructed from solid marble or carved stone. Instead, they used temporary materials such as staff, a mixture of plaster, cement, and fibre applied over wooden or steel frameworks. From a distance, they appeared monumental. Up close, they were designed to last only for the duration of the exhibition. Afterward, most were dismantled exactly as planned. Visitors who attended the fairs described this openly. Newspapers announced demolition schedules. Construction companies documented the removal. Far from being hidden, the temporary nature of these buildings was widely advertised before they were even completed. Still, the emotional impact remains powerful, because the photographs survive long after the buildings disappeared. Looking at those images today, separated from their historical context, it is easy to imagine something mysterious. A forgotten civilization, a vanished technology, a lost golden age. This reveals something profound about the human mind. Photographs capture appearance. They do not automatically preserve explanation. Without context, even ordinary history can begin to resemble myth. And that brings us to perhaps the most emotionally compelling question of all. If these magnificent buildings really were built by ordinary people, why does it feel so difficult to believe? Perhaps the answer has less to do with architecture and more to do with the stories we choose to believe. There is one question that refuses to disappear. If ordinary people built these incredible structures, why don't we build cities like this anymore? It is a question repeated across thousands of videos, podcasts, and online discussions. Cathedrals covered in intricate carvings, railroad stations that resemble royal palaces, libraries that look like temples, courthouses with towering columns, government buildings crowned with enormous domes. Supporters of the mud flood theory argue that modern civilization simply lacks the ability to reproduce such craftsmanship. According to them, these structures must have been inherited from an earlier, more advanced civilization, one that history forgot. At first, the argument feels surprisingly convincing. Stand beneath the vaulted ceilings of an old cathedral, walk through a 19th-century train station, study the stone carvings that took years to complete by hand. Compared to many modern glass office buildings, these older structures often appear more artistic, more ambitious, even more beautiful. But beauty is not evidence of a hidden civilization. It reflects priorities. Throughout history, wealthy governments, religious institutions, and powerful empires invested enormous amounts of money, labor, and time into monumental architecture. These buildings were symbols of power, faith, and national identity. Construction sometimes lasted decades, in some cases, even centuries. Entire generations of craftsmen dedicated their lives to mastering stone carving, masonry, stained glass, woodwork, and sculpture. Today, those same skills still exist, but economics have changed. Modern cities usually prioritize speed, cost, safety standards, and efficiency over handcrafted ornamentation. A glass skyscraper can house thousands of workers and be completed much faster than a building covered with hand-carved stone. The difference is not lost knowledge, it is changing priorities. Another claim often appears alongside impossible architecture. Old photographs showing empty cities. Supporters ask an unsettling question: where are all the people? Images from the late 19th and early 20th centuries sometimes show famous streets completely deserted. No traffic, no crowds, no movement. To conspiracy theorists, these photographs suggest civilization had already been wiped out. Entire populations gone. But photography itself tells a different story. Early cameras required extremely long exposure times. Depending on lighting conditions, an exposure could last several seconds or even several minutes. Anyone walking through the frame moved too quickly to be recorded clearly. They simply vanished from the final image. Only stationary objects remained. Buildings, trees, street lamps, horse-drawn wagons that stood still. Everything else became invisible. Photographers also deliberately took pictures early in the morning before crowds filled the streets, allowing important landmarks to remain unobstructed. Many surviving negatives include handwritten notes describing exactly when and where the photographs were taken. What appears mysterious today was often a simple technical limitation of 19th century photography. Then there is another recurring theme: lost technology. The internet is filled with claims that Tartaria possessed advanced energy systems capable of producing unlimited electricity. Decorative towers are described as giant antennas. Church spires become energy transmitters. Domes become power collectors. Ordinary architectural ornaments are transformed into pieces of forgotten machinery. It is a fascinating idea, but fascination alone does not establish evidence. Historians of science have searched extensively through engineering archives, patents, university records, laboratory notebooks, industrial blueprints, and manufacturing documents from the period. None provide credible evidence for a worldwide civilization powered by mysterious free energy technology. Instead, they document something far more gradual and remarkably well understood: the Industrial Revolution, steam power, coal, gas lighting, electrical grids, telegraph networks, telephone systems. Each technological advance left behind patents, prototypes, factory records, newspaper articles, engineering manuals, and physical infrastructure that historians can still study today. Progress was not hidden, it unfolded in public view. So if the historical record is so extensive, why has the mud flood theory continued to grow? To answer that question, we have to leave the world of architecture and examine something even more powerful: the internet. Around the early 2010s, scattered discussions about Tartaria began appearing on online forums dedicated to alternative history. Individual users shared photographs of buried windows, unusual maps, and grand buildings. Most posts attracted little attention. Then something changed. Video platforms transformed isolated ideas into visual narratives. Instead of reading a forum post, viewers could now watch slow-moving cinematic videos accompanied by haunting music, dramatic narration, and carefully selected historical photographs. Image after image appeared on the screen: a buried doorway, an abandoned cathedral, an old map labeled Tartary, a deserted street. None of these images individually proved the theory, but together, presented without historical context, they created an emotional experience. The audience was not merely learning, they were uncovering a mystery. Recommendation algorithms amplified the effect. Watch one alternative history video, and the platform suggested another, then another. Soon, viewers entered communities where similar ideas reinforced one another. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Once people accept a conclusion, they naturally begin noticing information that supports it, while paying less attention to evidence that challenges it. It is not a flaw unique to conspiracy theorists. Every human mind works this way. Scientists recognize it, journalists recognize it, investigators recognize it. The difference is that good investigations deliberately search for evidence that could prove them wrong. That is what separates curiosity from certainty. As our investigation continues, an unexpected realization begins to emerge. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not whether a mud flood happened. Perhaps the real mystery is how easily compelling stories can reshape our understanding of history, even when the historical record remains available for anyone willing to examine it. History is often imagined as a finished book. Every page written, every mystery solved, every answer already known. But history has never worked that way. It is a living investigation, one that grows stronger as new evidence is discovered, old assumptions are challenged, and forgotten records are brought back into the light. Every generation asks new questions about the past. Sometimes those questions lead to remarkable discoveries. Other times, they lead us down paths that reveal more about ourselves than about history. The mud flood theory exists because it speaks to something deeply human. It offers a world where every unanswered question has a hidden answer. Every unusual photograph becomes a clue. Every architectural wonder becomes evidence. Every gap in knowledge becomes proof that someone is hiding the truth. It transforms confusion into certainty, and certainty is comforting. After all, which feels more satisfying? Believing that history is messy, incomplete, and filled with ordinary human mistakes, or believing that a single hidden explanation connects everything? The second option is undeniably more exciting. A forgotten civilization, a global catastrophe, an elite cover-up, a lost technology capable of